Welcome to another episode of the Apex Perspective podcast. Today I have with me Abhisheyk Gaur, who is currently a principal software engineer at Amazon. Now, Abhisheyk started off his career at Qualcomm very early. Subsequently, he had joined Amazon, which is a very interesting story, which he'll share today, and of course, became the principal engineer there. Now, Abhishek, can you tell me a little bit more from your perspective, more about your background and what led you to Amazon, including that story that you were sharing with me before the podcast?
Yeah. Again, I'm happy to share. Thanks for having me, Aryan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I started my career in Qualcomm here in San Diego. I joined their test base station team early on, and I was working on very low level infrastructure, like low level C, C++ code, chipset, drivers, Linux kernel, and all that. It was like very, very hardcore C, C++ and all that. So I was very comfortable. I was learning a whole lot coming straight out of college.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened was like Amazon actually opened up an office in San Diego, and some recruiter actually reached out to me as like, hey, your profile really looks good. How about you come in, work with us? And I said no.
Which is the first time I've heard it before.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I was just, way too comfortable in my job. I'm like, I'm learning so much. I really don't need a, change in this. And so she went away. And then a couple of months later, she came back again, and she was like, no, you should really come and interview with us. Your profile looks really good. And I said, okay, you know what, fine, I'll go. And I wasn't even like, again, I was like, I don't care about this. I have my job and I'm so comfortable. I don't need to do anything. And I didn't even study for the interview or anything. And then like 3 days before the actual interview, I'm like, okay, maybe I should take this more seriously. I should not go and just bomb the whole thing. So in fact, then in 3 days, I kind of like, okay, let's review all the data structures. Let's review everything. And unfortunately, interview went well, except for maybe one, which I was able to salvage. They asked me a graph question, and I'm like, oh, no, of course, graph. But yeah, it worked out well in the end, and I joined Amazon. And I'm so glad that recruiter actually reached out because from my perspective, I think, it has allowed me to grow myself as an engineer. And I would honestly, I have no doubt in my mind that, I learned a lot of things, a lot of deep technical things in Qualcomm, no doubt, but I'm a whole another level of engineer at Amazon.
Right.
Because of the sheer scale that Amazon operates at, whether, you're talking about code bases or customers or services, is just another level. There are very few companies in the world which even remotely comes close to
certainly
the level of work we do.
So you became very technically strong at Qualcomm, and your thing that you of course grown as an engineer as a whole. What do you think that change was? Was it purely technical, or was it across different aspects of becoming an engineer?
No, I think it was different aspects of the of engineering. Basically, more about like leadership, and like when you're solving problems in Amazon or in a big company, or even like as a principal engineer, you're just not of course, you're solving deep, hard technical problems, but that is not everything. Like, you're also trying to solve customer problems. Like, what does customer need? And that is where, you have to ask the right questions. Is this because, look, in a big company, you have enough smart engineers, and no matter how hard the technical problem is, there will be someone who will be able to come up with a solution. But the point is, you have to ask the question: Is this the right solution first? And should we even be doing this? Is this like when to do something and when not to do something, right? Like many times, there are, like when I work with different teams and engineers, they will propose something, and half the times unfortunately or fortunately, I kind of shoot down the ideas. I'm like, do you really need this? Is somebody asking for this? Because creating complexity is actually really, really easy. simplifying things is actually much more harder. And in fact, like in Amazon, we have one of those leadership principles: invent and
Mhm.
simplify.
Mhm.
That is what the leadership principle, it what encompasses this aspect of how do you actually continue to make progress while simplifying things and not piling on tech debt or any other thing.
Mhm.
So I think that perspective in Amazon when I joined, working on front end features or back end features, and seeing how little changes on .com website can lead to multi millions of dollars of impact. How customer uses our feature was a big thing, and you have to
Mhm.
start really thinking about like not just from technical perspective, but from business perspective as well. So.
Certainly. And you said something very important, focusing on progressing without adding too much unnecessary technological improvements or certain other improvements that may not be necessary. Uh, Where did your perspective change on what actually drives forward real progress versus ones that are unnecessary?
Yeah, so I think like as I joined on Amazon, I was still sort of in this mode of hey, I have to solve like deep technical problems.
Mhm.
And for a little while I was actually doing that. I was like solving deep technical problems, but then there's this very very famous like I saw the difference in how Amazon and Qualcomm operates. Like in Qualcomm, like if you and I don't know if it's still true and it's been a while, but
Mhm.
like for example, if you're presenting some feature or something, you will have this a presentation, a Microsoft PowerPoint presentation, go through the slides and everything. And it's very well known in Amazon. That's not how it works. It's like you have the
Mhm.
6 pager where you actually go and read. And it starts with every 6 pager is sort of supposed to start with, okay, let's work backward from the customer. Let's
Mhm.
work with what does actual customer need. And so, for example, you could be and use data and facts actually to drive the point that why do you actually need this. So for
Mhm.
example, I could be introducing a new service or something, like why is this service important to the customers, what
Mhm.
benefit they would get, and then work backwards from that. Okay, this is what the benefit customers would see. These are
Mhm.
the proper business plan, and then go into the technical details. So you start with the
Mhm.
business first, and then actually work backwards from that to, okay, let's actually now understand the technical requirements. So you start with business plan, and then now things have changed with the AI, and I can go much more deeper
Of
into
course.
that. But historically, before AI, that was the standard. Now it has a sort of, things have changed. Things have changed in the way that coding is cheap now, right?
Mhm.
So like small things which were very expensive before, like for example, you have some cool idea that you want to trying that cool idea might require you to code something, change some service, and it might take a month and a half, and which
Mhm.
might take your resources away from other projects which might be
Mhm.
more important. And the problem then was like, okay, should we really invest in that? Should we really
Mhm.
invest in your idea? And the way to figure that out was, okay, let's have a business plan which is going to be beneficial for the customers, beneficial for the company, and go from there, right? But now with AI, the coding has become so cheap that you can actually have your idea running in an afternoon.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
this is a shift in perspective where the small paper cuts, like you can do them, like the
Mhm.
prototyping and some of these things are very cheap. And this is where I actually see some changes happening in the industry, and which I think, my personal opinion is, it's gonna like the future teams, future companies are gonna look way different than how they look today. Today you have a
Right.
top down structure and a tree structure. I think they're gonna look much more
Yeah.
flatter and different.
And before we dive deeper into that perspective for the
Yeah.
future, I was very curious about your perspective on really understanding customer needs. Usually, I ask this question to people who are in product management, but since in your background, I've seen you work closely with people in product management at Amazon. How
Yeah.
do you identify what customers need versus what they say they need. That's a common phenomenon that could be a problem in business.
Yeah, and that's a very interesting question. Like usually, sometimes, so we do actually do customer studies. We do actually one of the ways is actually do customer studies. Some of the other ways is actually we look at the historic go out and explore what's happening in this particular whatever feature we are trying to do some market research and figure out if this is the right thing to invest in, or if this is the right business to try to create that business. The other I think those are the two main ways. I would say, like, try what's look at the data, and then like if it points to like, okay, this could be a right business, do that. Ask users would be another way. Sometimes you always you have to like take a leap of faith in some of these things, like, hey, you don't know whether things will work out or not. Historically this has been like true, like sometimes companies have come up with like really great products, but the timing was not right. And same products which came out later on, exact same thing,
did very well because the timing.
They were very well with the timing. So you can't I think it's a combination of getting user feedback, and we always try to get user feedback.
So calculated risks, a little bit of calculated risks.
It's a little bit of a calculated risks. And like for example, I can give a quick example. And
sure, please.
Like for example, we like, at least in my team, we just recently released this new feature called virtual try-on. So like if you go on Amazon and any Softlines product, you can actually you will see a button which will say try it on, style it on me. And you can actually click on that. You can upload a selfie, and you'll see if you're shopping for shirts, you will see actually yourself wearing that shirt. So it's very good. It's very
interesting.
So but people will not know this is like our third attempt at this.
you can't detect, you can't plan for human behavior. That's actually
exactly. And times have changed. Like when we tried this before, I think there was just this mental block of, hey, the science wasn't there, right? Like a few years ago, the science wasn't there, and there was this mental block. Hey, the image that should come out should be like top notch, perfect, no hallucinations, no nothing. And so it didn't, like all the data pointed that yes, this really helps customer make the right decision. All the data pointed to that, but like people will not just use it.
You won't know. You won't know. In fact, I'll give a very important point. There was Skype, I believe, in eBay. eBay acquired Skype in 2005 for a large figure. And what ended up happening, and the thesis behind that decision making, was that people from eBay can converse with other people utilizing the Skype feature. Right. And integrating that to the platform would have been an excellent way to create better communication. But what was not understood was human behavior, that component. They didn't end up using the Skype because strangers don't want to talk to strangers. So
exactly.
This is the point. You won't always know, but there is a component of calculated risk where you want to understand the data. Where does it lead to, and what are some possible solutions that can come out of there, right? So this happens even at the company-wide level, where there's companies acquiring bigger companies for certain solutions. But again, human behavior is just not something you would fully understand. But I think it's important to know data is very important to understand, and possible solutions you may have to take a calculated risk with, and it may pay off very well, depending on the timing, depending on how people react. So I wanted to say that was a great point you made.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot on that. And now that, initially people have this mindset, now actually people are comfortable with small hallucinations and stuff. Plus the tech has also advanced a whole lot. So the images are very, very realistic with barely any hallucinations. It looks pretty like you're there wearing the shirt. And the feature is doing great, so that's the point. Like the times have changed, nothing changed. It's the same feature. It's just that the science have evolved. Yes, it's become a better product, but fundamentally, like if you think about it as a feature, what does this feature do? It styles things on you. That thesis has not changed, and it finally worked. So it was just a matter of time. So in sort of these things, these are like, in my opinion, very hard to answer. You can always look at, like, user studies. Even those user studies can be flawed. Like, you can ask the same question in two different ways, and then you'll actually get two different answers. But I think the best thing is, ask users what they want, and hopefully you get the right data if you're asking their questions in the right way.
And this leads to a very important question about how you viewed your technical work subsequent to learning about business outcomes. I know you mentioned earlier on this podcast that sometimes people on your own team, you deny or you shoot down certain things that they're suggesting. There's technically strong ideas, but it won't drive actual enterprise value. So how did you change your perspective on technical work subsequent to realizing that?
Yeah, I think this kind of shift did not happen overnight. As I continue to grow in my career, I know, like, I'm still an ambitious engineer.
Yes.
And I learned from watching leaders how they operate, right? And one of the things fortunately I noticed is that they're always looking. They're very good at cutting through the noise. Like, what is actually relevant for business? And if you have that mindset, then suddenly a lot of things become very clear. For example, I'll just make up an example. Let's say you're a factory owner and you actually create, cars. Okay, you create cars. You're a factory owner, and if you have that mindset, hey, this is my sole money making business, and if tomorrow the factory shuts down, I'll be on the streets, to take the extreme example.
Sure.
Your mindset would be way different. Now there could be, you have 100 of engineers on the line, somebody's building engines, somebody's building this. Now let's say some engineer comes to you and says, oh, by the way, I found this, great, I think I can modify this engine to make it more powerful, but it's going to take me 15 months, and your line will not be functioning for a while. Is that okay? Can I do this? What would you say?
No,
not
at all.
You'll be on the street by that time, right?
Yeah.
So this is the key thing. I think what most engineers miss, they think like, hey, engineering is like a high school project where everything has to be perfect. I can everything is like I can spend my whole day writing this nice class and everything. Leaders are not thinking like that, right? Like yes, tech debt and all this is nice, should not have that, but they're thinking from business point of view. What should I do? Where should I invest? Because I have limited resources. Think from leadership's perspective. I have limited capacity for SDEs. Now, if I have a bunch of SDEs coming in and they say they're going to do something crazy for like 2-3 months, which may or may not end up rewarding, would I invest in it? No. So I think this is the shift in mindset that needs to happen. Like, you have to cut through the noise. That doesn't mean that their idea is bad. Like, I will go back to that factory mechanic and I would say, yeah, how about you show me a glide path, how you're going to do this while keeping the factory running, right? Like, show me the glide path. Like, hey, we're not going to release this big thing at one go. We will show improvements, and hopefully by next year's time, we'll actually have this running and have a better product. But you cannot come to me with the mindset of, I'm going to change the world or boil the ocean. You have to look at all these. Yeah, you have to cut through the noise. What is that you're trying to do? And you have to realize, like, if it's very easy, like, if you start thinking from leadership's perspective, right? Like, what needs to be true to make sure the business succeed, then it becomes very easy to understand what everybody's motivations are, and then what you need to do to actually succeed. So that's actually, I think, the key thing. Like, stop, like, and I think this is where I think principal engineers, they have the hardest job, because you not only have to you have to connect both worlds. You have to connect the tech world as well as the business world.
Yes.
Tech world, because you have really high caliber, really smart people who really want to do a lot of good things, and you have really high caliber, really smart business people who want to take the business to new heights. And unfortunately, the goals are slightly different. And so you have to merge them, right? Like, I honestly think the business goal is more important, because if that is not the tech goal is not making money, the business is.
Right.
Although tech is the enabler of that.
Exactly. So, it bridges the path.
It bridges
the path. Yes.
So it's like any success goes through the tech. So you have to be aligned, but it's not like
the guiding North Star is business, however.
Yeah, guiding North Star is the business. So the tech also has to meet. So I think the job of a principal engineer is really hard in that sense. Like, you have to meet them in the middle, like, hey, this is what makes sense from the business perspective. And sometimes, business also wants, like, hey, can I have artificial AI like next week? No, well, that's not going to happen. So, okay, what can we do? And that's where, I think that shift happened over time. It's not something overnight, and I'm still getting better at it. How to actually, cut through the noise. Make sure, like, what is the right questions to ask in a meeting. You don't want to ask, like, if you have like a bunch of leaders, you don't want to ask like things which really don't matter, right? Like, you wanna ask the questions which actually, okay, yes, that's a good insight. That's a good question to ask. And it could be a business question, could be a technical question. But this shift happens over time. It does not happen immediately. And I would encourage all engineers to start thinking from business perspective. I think that's the road to success, to be honest.
Very good. And I think, yes, the technical part is a bridge to making these things happen. But again, you want to make sure that technical work is highly relevant, and that's why you lead from a business perspective. But what I would like to do now is shift this conversation to more about your perspectives on the future of specifically engineers, I would say, with I guess, AI being involved in the mix. So where do you see the shift happening in terms of what becomes more relevant as time passes when it comes to the fact that AI is developing at a rapid pace and it's actually replacing a lot of workflows?
Yeah. So I think that, and this is just my perspective, I think even in my job, I see, like, as I alluded before, I think some of these things which had high barrier of entry, like, hey, I want to create a prototype, I want to do this, I want to improve the system. And before, you had all of these things on a back burner. So I imagine, like, if you imagine, like, any team has like bunch of high priority tasks, and if they open up their Jira or their backlog, you will see like a whole list of, like, 50 or 100 like small backlog items which are just sitting there gathering dust. I think with AI, those things are just very small things which can be knocked out at a very fast pace. And so what I see happening is that AI is becoming really, really good. Now, I don't think it's making engineers 10x or 20x. Some days, yes. Some days, yes. Some days you do feel like, yeah, I mean, I did all of this in 2 days. Like, for example, I was working on something, and previously I can easily say it would have taken me like at least 4 months. Like, I was doing some large system design for 2 different products, and some coding. Easily it would be in 3-4 months. I did the whole thing in 2 weeks. Like, it was just amazing to show the speed at which I could do. I wrote the whole like 6-page document, 2 of them very clear, very clean, and then CRs and all that, code reviews and all that. So I see these things leading to a team which is much smaller and more concentrated towards experienced professionals, experienced SDs. I do see, I think, entry level, jobs or entry level things. I do see them not being relevant anymore because those things can be done with the AI. I think where AI really, really shines is in the hands of experienced folks because they have the capability to ask the right questions.
Right.
Like, is it doing the right thing or not? And that's the reason I think also some of these things are not 10x. So even in my experience, when I actually ask AI to do things, yes, it's very good at writing boilerplate code, very good at actually even coming up with a solution. But when you look at the solution, sometimes it will overcomplicate things and you have to give it a prompt again and prompt again and prompt again. And that overhead, you get a lot of gain by making an initial pass, but then that gain is like, could be like 10x, but then that gain becomes like 7x, 5x, 4x, because as you're iterating and you're almost like, okay, I did I did do this fast, but it's not as fast as it could be. Now, this will probably change with better and better models. So I think, but that high level judgment is really, really important. And that's where my original point of you have to make high level business judgment. Now, when things become so cheap, you have to ask the question whether you should be doing this at all or not. Is this actually right for business? Otherwise, you'll just end up with AI slop all over the place. Like you'll just be writing a whole lot of things. It's just not going to add any value.
Without value.
It's not going to add any value. And so you have to, so that's why I think it becomes more important. You need to have the technical chops, but you also need to have, sort of this business chops as well to understand like where the business is going. Is this the right thing to do? And have the high level judgment.
Excellent.
The teams are going to become smaller. I think the orgs are going to become flatter. I can easily see like a manager handling like, a team of highly, a manager before could have like, sub-managers and 100 folks under them. I easily see that whole thing getting flattened out to a manager and maybe 20 L6s, L7 principals and a bunch of AI agents, and that's it. No junior SDs or anything, because you do not need, like, it's not needed. Like those those highly experienced individuals are more than enough capable of actually running bigger projects and asking the right questions.
A concluding question for you on this topic would be really about where you see the future going for these careers then. If there's no more entry-level jobs here, there's not going to be time for other juniors to learn and make the mistakes because they don't have the opportunity to do so and become seniors later down the line. What happens to that cycle?
Yeah, I think that cycle, like any other cycle, is going to go through up and down, and eventually is going to, in the long run, it's going to hit a stable, point. This is not, I'm not gonna like, so this is not like sort of fear mongering. Hey, stop doing computer science and stuff. I think, to be honest, I fully believe that you should follow your passion, right? I got into computer engineering because from as far as I can remember, when I was young, as a kid, I was just interested in computers, how they worked. I created I had my own, like, I used to code in, like, I was in like 5th, 6th standard or something. And I used to write like VB, Visual Basic 6 programs. I created a whole clone of Photoshop when I was like really, really young, just because I could. And I was just really interested in that. So I followed my passion. I think you should, I think it's a general good advice, follow your passion. I think people who got into this, computer science, hey, because it's a quick path to money, I think you're not going to survive because it's not your passion. And you'll never be able to dive deep as much as a person who's just...
You're going to need to dive deeper even more now.
You need to dive deep even more now. Exactly. So so overall, I wouldn't say this is like fear mongering. You should not do computer science. You should do computer science if you're really, really interested in it. And yes, the jobs are going to be scarce. I think the experienced engineers are going to be even more valuable in the future because you're going to have more and more AI written code, which is going to require more and more high level judgment if you're doing things right. But what happens when those AI engineers retires? Like all those engineers retire, right? Like eventually,
that's the question.
And then what happens? There can be this vacuum. So yes, people who are enrolling in CS right now and all that, yes, they are needed. But don't see that there might be some struggle. Like every industry goes through this, like up and down. So you might, but I would say persevere. learn as much as you can,
Yeah.
go through this, and I think in the end it would be rewarding. But don't just do it this as a like, hey, I can do this and it's a shortcut to success. I don't
Yeah.
think that's true anymore. I don't think it's a
Okay.
shortcut to success. You have to go through this, a long winding road, but I think in the end it's still a rewarding career.
Yeah. And we'll get your opinion on this in a year from now when you're back on the podcast again. But what we'll do is do a short concluding part of the conversation about a little bit more about you, and then we'll end the podcast from there. So just about you, a quick question for you is, what is something about your life that you wish more people knew about?
That's a hard question to answer.
It is. This never. It's one of the harder questions I ask.
Yeah, it is a hard question.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, like I've always been interested in computers from as long as I can remember, and I think I've seen this few times in my career. I'll have coworkers or peers who would be struggling with certain tasks which I normally don't struggle with. It's just because I think it's like this. Like if sometimes you'll have these kids who learn like new language, or they learn to play chess or piano, and they're like, how this 13-year-old kid can be so brilliant at these things.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just when you're young, your brain is very, very
malleable.
Elastic. Yeah, it's very moldable. It's very plastic, where you can actually retain and hone those skills. Fortunately, obsession or something those lines. Yeah, I mean, something like that. So fortunately, I was just never when I was younger, I remember people, my friends, they would be playing video games and all that. I was never interested in that. I was actually more interested in making the video game rather than playing it.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of molded me into having this unique perspective about hey, it's very natural for me to come up with right solutions and right things, and so I think that perspective helps. Other than that, I don't know. The only other thing I can say is like you said, you're in San Diego. I'm in San Diego. Nice awesome. Weather. So I started riding motorcycle quite late.
So it's a perfect place to do it. San Diego has the perfect weather.
Yeah. So I mean,
be careful.
I didn't used to ride, but one day I was sitting in traffic. I saw some bike go by. I'm like, I can do that.
And then skip all the traffic.
Basically. Yeah, skip all the traffic. So I learned quite late actually. Most people learn young. I learned quite late. I took all the CHP course and all that. And yeah, now I can ride bike. So
excellent.
Nothing. I would say nothing more than that. It's just
awesome.
I think it's a unique perspective. Yeah.
Well, one last question for you is, what do you think is the biggest difference between you when you were in your 20s versus you now? I know there's probably a lot, but if you can point out one that you think is important, what do you think that is?
For sure, I think I've grown a whole lot as an engineer. I think I'm a whole another person now.
Wow.
I think some of the decisions, and this is kind of, I think for the people who are in 20s, I would say, hey, you look at all those people who are successful later on. And sometimes even I used to look at people who are successful and they'll be like, why is that person successful? I can do that, what they're doing. Because you're solving some things and you're like, you can solve that.
Yeah.
And as you grow, you realize, no, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. They are there because they were also 20 at some point of time. They thought probably the same thing. It takes, I think, experience is something there is no substitute for. There is absolutely no substitute for. You could be really good at something I think, but a person who has experience will match you. I think the best combination is, that's why I say you should follow your passion. Passion plus experience is the gold standard. But if you lack one, if you lack the, even if you lack like, the raw nature of, what you're naturally good at, experience will take you far. So I think experience is really, really, really important. Another thing I would say, I think 20s is the time to learn as much as you can. Absolutely go dive deep, be the most technically smart person you can be, because that will start to come in handy when you are in your 30s and when you become experienced, because you will use that plus experience to make the right call. So learn as much as you can, right time to take risk, learn as much as you can, and gather that experience while you are actually diving deep into things. That would be my suggestion.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Abhishek. Where can people learn more about you? Is LinkedIn the best place to learn about you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place to contact me. And all my contact and everything is over there. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Abhishek, thank you for joining me. This was Aryan Mohin.